Let us begin our service now with the prelude for ingathering. Everyone will be muted as we listen to the ingathering music by Debussy, offered by James Smith. Thank you. That was beautiful. Although we were told it's not Debussy. Good morning, everyone. Happy Father's Day and happy summer solstice. Welcome to our community worship with the UU Congregation of Charlottesville. I am Dawn Dirks, your worship weaver today. I am so glad to welcome all of you into this virtual sanctuary. Our physical sanctuary was built in 1950 on hilltop land acquired by the church after World War II. For centuries before us, this land has been the dwelling place of the Monacan people. Later, this land was part of plantations of the Norris family and then Rugby, who each enslaved African Americans for labor and profit. We honor all those who dwelt here before, and all those whose lives led to this moment of our gathering as a community of memory and hope. Today's service is a special one. For almost 2 years, people have asked if we can have a service of healing to help us as some of us struggle with the pains and hurts which were caused in recent years. Today, after 9 months of many small group conversations and some sermons addressing the difficult history, today, on the summer solstice, we will offer a healing ritual. The ritual is at the end of the service, and it will continue in person at the front portico of our building following the service. All are warmly invited. And if you have not felt the hurt connected to recent painful times here, we invite you to bring other spiritual wounds you carry in your heart that were caused by some other harm, in your own personal life, in the challenging times in our nation and world, in the legacy of racism. Whatever ache is in your soul, whatever is breaking your heart, today you are invited to bring it all, to be held in compassionate embrace in this time of solstice sunlight and the changing seasons. Greg Townsend is joining me today as co-worship leader. Reverend Leah will be sharing our joys and sorrows, and Reverend Linda will be leading us into the healing time. Behind the scenes, Kelly Dryden, and Sean and Megan Scally are running the show. And as always, we are grateful for the musical gifts of James Smith and the video artistry of Ellie Ransom. And now, let us join our hearts and minds in worship with these words adapted from the Sufi poet Rumi. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Together we give thanks for the fathers and father figures in our world, and for the power of love, which invites us always to journey together. Come, in pain and in joy, let us worship together.
There's enough love, there's enough love, there's enough love in this world to wash away all the pain, sadness, sorrow, rain. Nothing you see would be without it. Nothing ever done would last to be passed on. There's enough hate in this world to scatter the clouds of doubt, to let the darkness out. But there's enough love in my heart to give you a place to heal, to hold you so you feel. There's enough love in this world. You may not be able to see it from where you are, but let me remind you, you are so close, you've come so far. You may not be able to see it from where you are, but let me remind you, you are so close, you've come so far. There's enough love in my heart to give you a place to heal, to hold you so you feel. There's enough love in this world. There's enough love, there's enough love, there's enough love, there's enough, there's enough.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Today, Don Dirks has come into your sanctuary to light the chalice flame. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs, and we light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the Church of Open Minds, This is the church of helping hands. This is the church of loving hearts. If you have a chalice in your home, please light it now and let the light shine in.
Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright. It's alright. Little darling, the smiles returning to the faces. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright, it's alright. Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, 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 here it comes. Little darling, I feel that ice is slowly melting. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been clear. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright, it's alright. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright, it's alright. Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, 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 here it comes.
The summer solstice.
Little
Litha is one of the 8 annual sabbats or festivals observed as part of the Wheel of the Year and is one of the 4 fire festivals. It is the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, and is celebrated around June 19th to the 21st. During this time, the sun has reached its farthest position from the equator, marking the peak of the growing season and signaling that harvest is just around the corner. Litha is the counterpart to Yule. At this point, the sun is at full power, although the hottest days of summer are approaching. From this point onward, the year is waning, each day becoming shorter and the nights growing longer as we draw back into the dark until winter solstice, when the days will again become longer. Midsummer is a time when the battle between light and dark commence. At each solstice, the Oak King and Holly King duel for power. The Oak King is in charge of the land at the beginning of June, but will be defeated and be dethroned by his twin brother, the Holly King, by the end of midsummer, and the Oak King's descent will begin. Many Litha rituals recreate this seasonal myth. The goddess is now full and pregnant with child, and the sun god is at the height of his fertility. The goddess has left her maiden form of Imbolc and is now in her mother aspect, though she will begin to prepare herself for harvest and pending cronehood. Because this is the most powerful day for the sun god, Litha honors and celebrates the element of fire. In ancient times, it was a festival of great importance. Traditionally, people would have processions with their animals while carrying torches, parading to the tops of hills, to holy wells, and any other sacred place where they would have built and lit bonfires. During this time, instead of burning the 9 sacred woods, they would only burn oak and fir. Here, they would hex the cattle for health, fertility, and protection, while staying awake all night to welcome the rise of the sun.
The summer solstice, to me, is a time to celebrate the height of the sun's power on this longest day. It is a time to embrace the energy that has been germinating since the winter solstice and bring it into the light. May it be so for all of us. I remind you that in the month of June, our social action collection goes to Jefferson School African American Heritage Center. And we invite and are grateful for the gifts you make to sustain the ministry of this congregation. We give thanks for all that you love, and we encourage you to be generous in putting your love into action with your gifts. May your donation, like your love, go out into the world. Please join me in dedicating the offering now, saying these words. We accept your gifts with gratitude. May we use them wisely for the highest good.
Beautiful. Thank you, James. I have a summer solstice story to tell you this morning. It's a true story, and it's a story of pain and struggle, hope and healing. And most of all, it's a story about arriving at a moment of clarity. I was traveling to a Unitarian Universalist General Assembly. That year, it was in Calgary, Alberta. I decided to take my children along with me, and we took the train from DC to Whitefish, Montana. And then we rented a car to drive to Canada, taking the scenic Going to the Sun Highway through Glacier National Park. I had memories of driving over that long, winding, treacherous road when I was a child. My dad was driving our car then, and I remember being scared and also being awed by the beautiful views as we climbed high and crossed the Continental Divide. When I decided to drive my own children on that highway to the sun on the way to a UU General Assembly, I was challenging myself to overcome childish fears and be brave. It was a bit of a risk, since sometimes the Going to the Sun Highway doesn't open until almost July, when all the snow has melted off that high, steep road. As luck would have it, this year they opened the road the very day we arrived. And that year, that day was the summer solstice. The drive was beautiful. We took our time. We stopped as often as we could at little turnoffs and one high rest area up near the Continental Divide. There we saw the early mountain flowers, and we were amazed to watch a family of mountain goats hopping along the rocky places on the hills above us. They were brave and sure-footed, and I thought to myself, how I wished I could move forward in my own life with as much confidence as those goats did. I'm telling you this story this morning because it came at a moment of decision, of letting go and moving on with my own life. Sometime between the beginning of our drive and when we arrived in Calgary, sometime as we crossed from spring to summer, as we crossed from one side of the Continental Divide to the other, sometime in that journey, I made an inner crossing from my own past to my future. I made the decision to answer the call to become an ordained minister. I don't know how it happened, but it did. I often express what is deepest in my heart through writing a song, and so I share this story now in a song with pictures from Glacier Park, thanks to Ellie Ransom. And this song includes a message for all of you, for all who are struggling to move on in your life's journey.
soul began to fly, and my future came in view. Among the glacier flower fields on the continent's divide, I crossed a mountain in my life. I changed a season deep inside. I crossed a mountain in my life. I changed a season deep inside.
So friends, today on this summer solstice 2021, we are at a high point in the world. And from this vantage point, we can look behind and see all that has led to this very moment. And we can look ahead and imagine what might be in our future. When I arrived last August to be your interim lead minister, many people told me how much you need healing. And people asked for a service, a ritual, a ceremony of healing and reconciliation. Many of you suffered greatly in the recent years before I arrived. Some of you were sneered at, spoken badly of, yelled at. One of you wrote a mean and hateful anonymous note to a church staff person, and others were openly rude to staff and one another. Some of you were shocked by the apparent racism exhibited in words and silences among you, and others were deeply wounded by being attacked as racist. Those were painful times. People felt like this community was hurting them, and they were hurtful too. A number of people, members of your congregation, left and haven't been seen since. Others of you stayed, but your wounds are still really painful. And some of you didn't experience this time at all because either you weren't close to the center of the conflicts or because you arrived more recently. But all of us know what feels like to be betrayed by a friend, what it feels like to be wounded by a loved one, or even how difficult it is to reconcile ourselves with our own shame at causing harm, or our disappointment in ourselves that we don't know how to behave when we see harm being caused around us. Dear ones, today is the solstice. It's a day to breathe deeply and look around us. It's a time to consider changing the season deep inside of ourselves, just like it's changing outside. You have been climbing this steep and difficult trail to get to this moment. Conflict in your own lives, in this congregation, in our nation, in the world, conflict and pandemic and crisis, and yet we have kept climbing to get to this moment. We've been carrying heavy loads of pain and shame and grief and anger, and yet we kept climbing in spite of twisting our ankles or scraping our knees or even worse, physical injury and spiritual. We kept climbing, and here we are now at this moment, at this place of continental divide, of a high place in the world, in the year, in our lives. I invite you all now to pause and place those heavy backpacks you've been carrying, place them on the ground. And now straighten yourselves up and look around. Look at the sky. Look at the views of the past and the future. Look at the brave mountain goats playing on the high rocks, and look at the pretty little mountain flowers blossoming right in front of you, blossoming messages of hope and life returning. You are here in this moment. And the season is changing. How will you go forward from this moment? Because you must go forward. The journey continues. The earth will not cease from turning on its axis and continuing its graceful journey around the sun. And you too must go forward. Don't get stuck here. Your life is calling you on. How will you proceed? Will you be able to take out of your backpack some of the burdens which have weighed you down, some of your grief, some of your anger? Maybe you're waiting and waiting for somebody to apologize. Or will you decide to pick all those up and continue carrying that heavy load with you because you're not ready to let go of it all? No matter what decision you're making today on this solstice, no matter if you're not ready to lighten your load to heal, no matter what you decide, it's okay. But what this congregation offers you this day is that we honor that each of us is continuing the journey in our own way. Some of us are healing, some of us are not ready, but we also honor that we need to commit to one another on the journey. Our commitment in this solstice time is that we will share the trek together, and we will be here for each other as we cross this continental divide between the past and the future, whatever it may be. And we commit to making sure that no one will stay stuck in a life-denying paralysis of resentment, of resistance, of hanging on to pain. Did you twist your ankle? We will offer you an arm and we will go more slowly so you can continue at your own pace. Do you need to carry that heavy load of hurt and pain? Well, we will offer you the chance to share the load with us. And if you're not ready to make the journey towards healing, we will offer you our embrace, the chance to make the decision to stay with us and to know that our journey has room for you too. Wanderers, worshipers, lovers of leaving, this is not a caravan of despair. It's a caravan of compassion. So give your souls and minds and hearts some space right now to pause, to look, to reflect upon the scene in this place in your life. What will you pray on now? I ask you a question to reflect upon, just for a moment. I ask you to ask yourself, what am I holding on to from hurts in my own life, from hurts this congregation had caused me? What am I holding on to that I might be ready to let go of and release today? Now I ask you to think out and ask yourself this question. As I continue into the future, the next season, what will I take with me? Will I take a new perspective? Will I take the knowledge that others know my hurt and can help me? Is there something else? What am I taking with me? So now we will enter into a ritual. And this is a ritual we'll offer now, but you also can do it at home later today, or you can come to the sanctuary and we'll be on the front steps of Rugby Road. We will offer the 4 elements to each of us in this ritual healing. Fire, which will give light and burn away and purify. Air, which receives the energy of all you choose to burn. Earth, which is solid and heavy and holds all the pain of the earth and of your heart. And water, which can bathe and cleanse the pain of a heart's heavy hurts. And we will perform this ritual here on the church altar. We invite you to do this for yourself later on today, or if you're able, we invite you to travel to this congregation's building on Rugby Road. And we will have a fire and altar on the front portico, and we will be here to offer the ritual with you in person. We will be in the summer heat with the fire and the air and the earth and the water until 1:30 today. And now let us begin the ritual. Spirit of life and love, we have been weighed down and hurt by so much in our journey up the mountains of our lives. Please hear us, love us, heal us, so that as we turn to the next season of our lives, our journey will continue with hope. We write down the hurts, the pain, the burdens we're ready to release. We place them in the fire, and we let the pain be released to the summer air to rise up and be held by the vast universe. We release the hurt, and we give thanks for the sky, which holds it now. And we take a piece of earth, a stone, and we hold it in our hands. We tell the stone what weight we want it to carry for us. We tell the stone the anger and the hurt and the pain we have had like stones in our hearts. And now we place that pain into the stone, and we place the stone into the water, and we let the water hold it for us, bathe it, wash it, and we can leave it. Amen. If there is a pain or a hurt or a shame or a grudge that you wish to release publicly, you can put those words into the chat during the song that we're going to be playing in a moment. Or you can give those words, those sad things, you can give them silently to a fire, to the air, to the earth, to the water, in a ritual that you do yourself or with us here at the sanctuary. And know that I will be burning on your behalf those pains that have been told to me in the scores of conversations that I've had with you. I will offer them to the universe in a ritual for you and for those who aren't with us today. As we prepare to end this Zoom time, the healing ritual will continue in your homes, or if many of you can come to this Rugby Road portico, we'll see each other between the end of the service and 1:30. And now let us bring this time of worship together to a close with the music as we are held by the embrace of the Spirit of life and love, as we feel the promise of a love that will not let us go, we offer and receive healing, hope, and possibility for turning on this solstice day to face the future and to journey onwards together. May this journey be filled with loving kindness for me, for you, for all of us, and for all beings. Amen. Ashe. May it be so.